Relationships are tricky, aren't they? One minute you're sitting around a campfire having a great time, the wine is flowing, music is playing, and next thing you know you've accidentally unalived the nice teithling bard who just wanted to join your party and there's blood everywhere and everything's awful. Just to clarify beyond doubt, I'm obviously talking about Baldur's Gate 3, a game that's as much about rizzing up your merry band of companions as it is about saving the world from mind flayers. Now, Baldur's Gate 3 has a relatively in-depth approval system that tracks just how much each of your party members enjoy your company, ranging from hates you and everything you stand for to absolutely head over heels in love with you. And the key to which side of this, admittedly, very long line they stand on is your decisions in-game. And if you're hoping to walk off into the sunset with one of your party members, you'd better make sure you keep them happy. But while wandering through my latest playthrough in Baldur's Gate 3, I got to thinking, what are the options you can pick that in a single moment are capable of absolutely wrecking your relationship with another character? What decisions, in short, will make your fellow adventurers hate your guts? Well, thankfully, due to the hard work of players like Sudo on Reddit, who go out of their way to find these things out, we know which dialogue options result in the biggest individual drops in approval possible in the game. And the biggest drop you can get comes from a truly monstrous choice. But we'll get to that. So let's set a baseline. Casting the spell Friends on any of your party members results in a flat -10 to approval once the spell ends. Even if they are your friend, they don't want to be forced into it, you know? What's a little bit weirder, and perhaps indicative of just how okay with casual violence and death the entire band of companions is, killing a member of your crew as the Dark Urge only nets you another -10 to approval, so it doesn't even get near to the worst things that you can do in the eyes of your mates. So let's work up to the most heinous crime you can commit. There are a couple of actions that result in a -15 to approval from Astarion specifically, mainly being a bit of an ass to him about biting the drow or just generally getting on at him about his concerns around late night bedroll activities. He's a cinnamon roll at heart, so make sure you treat him like one. Equally, you'll also get a -15 with Astarion if you refuse to let him turn you into his spawn if you happen to follow his personal quest all the way to the end. We won't spoil exactly what happens here, but yeah, if you don't let him do what he wants, he gets a bit annoyed. Up to the decisions that'll really send your approval spiraling south now, and you'll get a solid -20 to Shadowheart's approval if you hand her over towards the end of her personal quest line. Again, I'm not going to spoil the specifics, but if you hand her over to a certain someone, then she won't exactly be thrilled by the prospect. But you'll also lose her from your party, so honestly, the -20 is kind of moot at this point. And if you hate Shadowheart enough to do this, well, then maybe your approval needed to be higher. You'll also get a -20 to Karlach's approval if you go ahead and defeat Gortash, one of the big baddies you'll face towards the end of Baldur's Gate 3, without her getting to join in the fun. She has some pretty huge personal beef with Gortash that she'd much rather hash out with him using the blunt end of a massive warhammer. So if you want to get the most out of one of the later boss fights and don't want to piss off the devil with a heart of iron, you might want to consider taking her along. You'll also get a -12 to Gale's approval. I know, tricky to do considering his attempts to get you into his bedroll at every available opportunity. If you get the Book of Karsus, which Gale very much wants to look at, and tell him he's not allowed to. There's some very strong na energy to this choice, but there's also something incredibly funny about one of the worst things you can do to Gale, being keeping him from reading a magic book. If you manage to keep Jaheira, the druid with a death wish, alive in Moonrise Towers and get her to join you, you can snag a tasty -20 by deciding that Minsk, her companion, isn't worth the effort, and agreeing with the Emperor that he's not worth protecting. She won't like it, but I didn't like trying to keep her alive in the assault on the towers, so swings and roundabouts, Jaheira. Alright, we're into the big hitters now. -30 approval. You have to really mess up to get these. You'll really upset Karlach if you break up with her and tell her, I had my fun with you, that was enough for me, which, first of all, you're a monster, and second of all, we'll be coming back to this later, and third of all, how dare you. Gale has 2 -30 triggers, and they mainly revolve around insisting he's wrong and you're right. If you tell Gale, I'm not giving you anything, not now, not ever, when he has begged for a magic item twice, then it triggers a drop in approval, but by that point, you've probably upset him enough that he'll just straight up leave. Gale also doesn't like it if you brazenly lie to him. If you play as Astarion as an origin character and deny that you're a vampire to Gale, and continually insist that you're not a vampire, even though he absolutely 100% knows you're a vampire beyond any doubt, then you get that -30 to approval and a scathing voice line to boot. Which leads us, finally, to the top 3 worst things you can do. You get a stonking -50 to approval from Minsk or Jaheira if, at the murder tribunal in Act 3, you offer them up as sacrifices to Baal. Obviously, they're not thrilled at the prospect of being betrayed like that, so really, I'd have thought the approval cost would be higher. And finally, the big one, -100. And this is reserved for the truest of evils. If, right after getting the romance scene with Karlach after cooling her down, you tell her it was a mistake and break up with her, you get a -100 to her approval of you. And honestly, considering the character's past of being betrayed and let down by her closest friends and allies, we can see why. So there you go, dodge these decisions and you shouldn't have any trouble making your companions like you. Much like in real life, if you don't break their hearts and try to murder them, People are usually pretty easy breezy when it comes to making friends. And if you're still looking for more Baldur's Gate 3 stuff, check out this video right here.